We've seen a lot of people asking the same questions. Why did this happen? And how in South Korea? Isn't it supposed to be a stable democracy? We'll try to answer both these questions tonight, and here's the first thing that you need to know. President Yoon is struggling politically. His approval ratings are low, he does not control the parliament, and he is mired in corruption scandals. Instead of riding it out, he chose the nuclear option, a risky and amateur move. Let me take you back to the year 2022. That's when Yoon Suk Yeol won the presidential election in South Korea. He came with an ambitious agenda. Just one problem though, his party did not control the parliament. The opposition Democratic Party held the majority in parliament, meaning President Yoon could not get work done. His policies and his proposals were shot down in parliament. Elections happened again in 2024, and once again the opposition got a majority. So Yoon was reduced to a lame duck president. The opposition would pass their own legislations and Yoon would veto them. He used the veto at least 11 times since taking office. Yesterday, he did allude to this problem. Yoon cited policy paralysis in government. Basically, he was frustrated about being powerless. That was the first factor. The second factor was the corruption scandals. Most of them involve his wife. She's accused of stock manipulation, accepting gifts in exchange for favors, and of election meddling. All of this has dropped Yoon's approval ratings to 25. It was almost 53% after his inauguration, now it's 25%. So to recap, Yoon was stuck and unpopular. A seasoned leader may have rode out the storm or found a tactical solution. But President Yoon is a political novice. He was a prosecutor for most of his life. His first foray into politics was the 2022 presidential election, and clearly the inexperience showed. Which brings us to the second question we are addressing tonight. How did this happen in South Korea? Well, democracy is new in this country. Until the late 1980s, it was ruled by dictators and strongmen. They used to impose martial law regularly. There have been 16 instances since 1948. I know it seems unthinkable in modern-day South Korea, but look at their history. It is riddled with takeovers, assassinations, and crackdowns. The first military coup was in 1961. Army officer Park Chung-hee led soldiers into Seoul. He declared martial law and banned political activities. Park went on to rule for almost 20 years. The second coup was in 1979, less than 2 months after Park's death. Another general led soldiers and tanks into Seoul. That's 2 military takeovers in 7 decades. Even otherwise, South Korea's presidents have had troubled careers. Some have been overthrown, some have been jailed, a couple have been impeached, and one died by suicide. A lot of these presidents turned to martial law. Most of them gave the same reason as President Yoon: a supposed communist threat from North Korea. Now, we're not saying that Pyongyang is not a problem, but the last threat we saw was poop-filled balloons flying over the border. I'm sure that does not merit a martial law. And I know this one lasted only 6 hours, but for a lot of people it was traumatic because it brought back memories. They know what comes after martial law is declared. Critics get rounded up, politicians get arrested, protesters are brutally silenced. That's what happened in 1960. Korean students were protesting against South Korea's first president. He used martial law to suppress them. More than 180 people were killed in the crackdown that followed. The same thing happened in 1980. Citizens in the city of Gwangju protested against the president. In response, martial law was declared and some 200 people were killed. There are very painful memories for South Koreans here, and yesterday they briefly relived it.
Last night, I happened to wake up from my sleep and came across the news. At first, I was scared and very confused. I kept thinking, what is going on? Is this something that could actually happen in this era? I couldn't sleep until the martial law was lifted because I was so frightened.
It was an experience that I've only seen in movies, and I realized how much more serious it is than I had imagined. The current economic condition is difficult, and the fact that the president is causing such anxiety among residents makes the situation so much worse.
But credit to them because they fought to protect their freedoms. Even in the dead of the night, they turned up. Protesters blocked military vehicles, opposition parties mobilized, and even Yoon's own lawmakers stood up to him. Clearly, South Korea was not about to hit rewind. Credit also to Korean officials. Until the 1980s, martial law could be declared unilaterally. No parliament approval was required. Korean politicians added that clause in the 80s. And that's how this crisis was averted. I wish I could say all's well that ends well. But this is a warning to South Korea and all other democracies. Never take your freedoms for granted. And keep strengthening your laws and institutions because leaders like Yoon will always exist. Our best option is to be alert and build guardrails.